On this week's episode, we learn great tips for getting started with WordPress, how to use our cell phones to take beautiful pictures, and how having your own website can set you apart on the job market.
This is the Women Connected podcast, where we believe that women can improve their personal and professional lives through technology. If you're ready to cut through the noise and learn exactly the tools you need to create your professional brand, be recognized, and keep up in today's fast-paced world, then stay tuned.
Welcome to the Women Connected podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Goodgame, Program Director at TBW, where we believe that women can improve their personal and professional lives through technology. Don't forget to check our website for the show notes for all of our podcast episodes. Just go to tbwconnect.com/listen. This week, I have Elia Albaran on the show. Elia's background is incredibly diverse. When she was a child, her family traveled the Renaissance Fair circuit. Today, she's a small business owner, as well as the office manager for Four Kitchens Web Design and Development, which is an Austin-based firm that has created websites for some pretty impressive organizations, including the home of everyone's favorite online encyclopedia, Wikipedia. She also serves as the assistant producer of Austin's Armadillo Christmas Bazaar, where, among other things, she's overseen the website for the annual Art Bazaar, featuring handmade designs from more than 160 artists and artisans. Elia, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa.
So I know we're meant to be talking about technology, but first we have to start with hearing a bit about your childhood on the Renaissance Fair circuit, something which I know you're still involved with.
Well, it's a different way to grow up, for sure. It has led to a lot of different experiences in my life and a lot of travel and meeting people of all kinds of backgrounds, which is really interesting and I think has made me a fuller and more diverse person in general.
So how did a girl who grew up with the Renaissance fairs celebrating medieval times embrace the world of high tech?
Well, although I did grow up celebrating medieval times, I also grew up during the internet boom, and I had, my earliest experience with a computer was playing Oregon Trail and Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? And I think I was probably around 4 years old at my grandfather's house. And ever since then, computers were just an everyday part of my life. And I had my first laptop when I was 10 and just would stay up all night chatting with my friends on ICQ and just marveling at the connectivity that we could have.
So for our listeners who are a little bit older than you, what is ICQ?
It's a chat platform that I'm actually not even sure people still use, but you could join different chat rooms and talk to people all over the world about different topics, which I'm sure was a nightmare to my mother.
So an analog today might be something like Snapchat?
Snapchat is a little bit more one-on-one based. People today, we use social media to connect mostly with people that we know, instead of the broader version of connecting with anybody, because it was so new that it was just like this sea of connectivity. I would say, now I use like Google Hangouts, Facebook chat. So I'm honing in on speaking to like the people that are important to me, whereas before it was kind of just exploring what was out there.
I think that's a great point. One of the things that I think becomes overwhelming for people when they're first getting started with a new technology or a new social media platform is all of the content that seems to be out there. How do you manage the content that you like to consume?
Well, I am definitely a sucker for new platforms. I like to try them all. And see what I like about them and what I don't like about them. But recently, I've been using a few different apps just to keep in contact with my different companies that I work with. And Evernote and Google Drive have been my favorites for just keeping me on track.
Can you talk a little bit about Google Drive Evernote is something that a number of our guests in the past have talked about, and so I think a lot of our audience may be familiar with that now, but Google Drive is a new one.
Sure. Google Drive is great. It's obviously through the Google platform. So you sign in with your Gmail credentials. I'm sure that you can sign in with other accounts, but I have not had that experience. And you can create documents and spreadsheets, and then you can share them with anybody who you can email it to, or you can send them a link to it, and they can either view it or they can edit it. And one thing that I've found is really great is that you can leave notes for each other on it so that you can kind of have a continuing conversation about the document as it's in process. Instead of having to have a back and forth email, it's live and happening right in front of you. I could be typing something on there, and then in the other room, a colleague could be typing something on there, and we would see the changes right before our eyes. So it's just much more efficient than the constant uploading a Word document to your email and emailing it out.
That's a great feature. I use Google Drive as well, but I don't think I've really thought about the fact that you can do that so easily and not go back and forth with versions, which gets us all into trouble.
Yes, exactly.
I have a friend who was talking about a client that she has, and she has sent him a letter with changes that he needed to sign and acknowledge. And he keeps sending her back the version before the version that she sent with the final changes. So Google Drive is what they need to solve their problem, right?
I think that Google Drive can solve a lot of problems when it comes to that kind of thing. I know we've been working at the Armadillo at getting more efficient with how we send each other our documents, and I've been pushing to move to more Google Drive, because right now we have everything in Dropbox, and although that's a great place to hold final product, it's not a great place for while you are making changes.
Okay, so that's a great tip, actually, to use Dropbox as a place where you share your final documents, but using Google Drive for something while you're still in the drafting phase.
Exactly. I know with our advertising agency, they put all of our final drafts in there, and that way anything that I know we've finalized, I can go to that folder and find it. Whereas anything that I know we're still talking about, I'll just search my email and find the Drive folder or link, and then I can see what kind of changes are being made.
I know you see yourself as a Jacqueline of all trades.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you work for a technology company as one of your jobs. And even in your free time, I know you work on web development projects for others. How did you get started in this field?
Really, self-interest, I guess. I have always dabbled a little bit in web, but never as a proficient user, more as just I will search for what I want to do and find the code and maybe it will work, but never really a strong understanding of how those things are working together. And I've made a couple of websites through WordPress, and a lot of it is just trial and error. There's great forums now for learning something that you don't know about. I know that the user support forums on WordPress and Drupal are both really strong, and anything that you don't know, you can find now. So I really loved doing that kind of stuff, and it's always just been a hobby of mine, I guess.
So WordPress is something that we're particularly excited about at TBW. We actually have an upcoming training course for our members on how to get started using WordPress to build a personal blog or even to use it to build a company website. There's another tool, though, that you mentioned, Drupal. Just for our audience, can you explain a little bit what that is?
I wish that I could explain it better, considering I work at a company that uses Drupal on a daily basis. But it is a content management system that you can build a framework on, and make really big, complicated websites.
Okay, so that's not what we're working on.
That's not what we're working on, though.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about WordPress, though, since that is something that we're working on, creating some opportunities for people to learn a little bit more about WordPress. What's your recommendation for people who are really just getting started with it? I know you mentioned the forums, but let's say you've never seen WordPress before, except that you have read a blog that you know is published on WordPress. What do you think are the best ways for someone to get started so that in a couple hours' time they can have a nice little presence on the web?
I would say that the first thing that I would do is do a Google search of help starting WordPress site or setting up a WordPress site, and find a tutorial that you think you can understand the language of. My WordPress sites are self-hosted, which is a little bit more complicated if you don't, know what you're doing from the get-go. But there's also WordPress.com, which is a free service, and you don't get to have your unique URL, but it would be something like elia.wordpress.com. And it's so user intuitive when you sign into WordPress. It really is, especially for somebody who is just trying out their first blog. If you can use social media, then you can definitely make a WordPress site. And there's thousands of themes, and a lot of them have different ways that you can customize them. You can change colors, you can change fonts, you can change layouts. And so it's really fun to play around with because you can see the changes immediately and you don't have to know code to make a lot of those changes. Obviously, if there's something more complicated and in depth that you want to change, then you would have to change the code. But for somebody who just wants to have like a simple blog, it's really easy to make something look beautiful and fun.
I think of it as electronic scrapbooking. It's an opportunity to put up your pictures and put up your thoughts or recipes, movie reviews, book reviews, what have you, very quickly on a site where you can really give it a personal stamp.
Yeah, and the blogging community is great too. Whatever it is that you want to write about, there's people out there who are doing it and who would love to have a conversation with you about it. I know that for a while here in Austin, I was in a fashion bloggers group because I had a fashion blog for a few months. And it was a lot of fun. We would meet every week and have lunch and talk about blogging, talk about WordPress, talk about social media and connecting. So it's a great way to get involved with the internet community and your personal community too.
I think those are great recommendations for people who are just getting started with it. And I'll just give a little bit of a plug. We do have a guide on our website at tbwconnect.com that explains how to get started with WordPress and also how to get started with the self-hosting that you mentioned.
Perfect.
So we have some tools to help people get started. So I want to shift gears a little bit. You've described yourself as a digital native. You were saying that, you first remember playing with technology when you were about 4 years old. I have to confess, the first time that I saw a computer, I think I was about 11, and it was a big old IBM PC that my mom used one accounting program on. So I'm not quite native. I'm a slight interloper. But so with all of the travel that you do during the year, I think you also qualify as a road warrior. So you're a digital native road warrior. If you had to name some tools and some apps that make it possible for you to manage your professional and your personal schedule, what would those be?
Well, definitely traveling, having a smartphone has made the biggest difference in my life. Before my iPhone, I had a Nokia cell phone, and all it could do was text and make calls, which, at that time was even a wonderful and beautiful thing. But it came to the point where I was away so often on the weekends that I needed to be able to stay connected, and I was often places that didn't have Wi-Fi. And so having my iPhone was the biggest thing. I could check email, write quick responses, and be in touch with the team while I was gone. And I would say that as far as apps that help me with my travel, the places that I go are oftentimes the same place that I'm driving to, year after year. And so I don't have a lot of change in my travel necessarily, but one thing that I cannot live without right now is my sleep cycle alarm app. It wakes me up within a certain time span. Like I can tell it that I want to wake up at 7 a.m. and it'll wake me up anytime between 6:30 and 7 a.m. And it wakes you up at the most opportune time for your body to wake up, which is obviously when you're not in a deep sleep. So that's been great because I also don't know what time it's going to wake me up, which kind of keeps me from being stressed out about that.
I never thought about that advantage of using that type of alarm clock. I've read about them and I tried to use one and something happened and it didn't work properly the first day that I used it. So I abandoned it. But it sounds like something that maybe I should give another try to.
The other thing that I love about it is that it automatically silences my calls and my texts. And I'm the kind of person who, if I receive a text at 2 a.m, I can't help but read it. And so this has just been great. Like I turn it on and I go to sleep and it has a little white noise and I know that I'm not going to be disturbed. And then I wake up in the morning whenever it tells me to. And if it's earlier, I can snooze it a little bit. So it's nice.
That's great. What are some other tools that you use?
Well, I'm a photo junkie. I love taking pictures with my iPhone. And so I have a lot of photo apps that I use. And I often joke that it takes me 50 apps to create the perfect photo. But I would say it takes probably about 4. And my favorites are Camera Plus, which is an awesome app for the iPhone. And I have printed some of the pictures that I've taken just with Camera Plus and using the different filters in there, and they're really stunning, even printed. I love using Diptych, which creates the little like photo collages where you have like a few different images. And then Afterlight is another one of my favorite photo apps with great filters and good editing. And then, of course, Instagram, which is my everyday way to tell the world what I'm eating and what my dog is doing.
So cell phone photography, iPhoneography, Androidography, I don't know if that's even a word yet these days, is something that I think we all participate in, whether we're at a football game or we're taking pictures of our pets and our food, or just even on vacation. I can't think of how many times I have gone on a trip and I've taken my DSLR with me, and the number of places I've gone where I've decided not to carry it because it's too bulky or it's too heavy, or I'll have to check the bag if we go to a museum, things like that. And I find I rely on my cell phone so much more to take pictures. All of these apps, I have to admit, are really new to me. I'm actually an Android user, so I'm not familiar with some of the ones that you're talking about on iPhone, but I'll share with the listeners some of the apps that I use on my Android phone that I think do some of the things that you're talking about. How has carrying a camera in your pocket changed the way that you interact with people and places, and the way that you even do your work, for example, when you're on the circuit at the Renaissance fairs or working on things for the Christmas bazaar?
I am also guilty of having a really beautiful DSLR camera, and I have taken it on every trip, and it always ends up either staying in my luggage or being lugged around for a day on my shoulder and then being left at the hotel or at whoever's house I'm staying at. And it's not because I don't want to take pictures with my lovely camera, but my phone is just so easy. It's definitely changed the way that people interact, because I think that a lot of times people are more interested in capturing the moment than experiencing the moment. And this month, October, I have been kind of making a special pact with myself that I'm calling it Be Present October. And so I'm trying a lot more to experience the moment and not capture it so that I can look at it later and remember what it felt like to take that picture. Since I've started working at Four Kitchens, I've certainly had less time to take those self-indulgent pictures of, my glamorous lifestyle of eating lunch on a Wednesday afternoon with my girlfriends and taking my dog for long walks. So I think that that's been helping me kind of disconnect from the overindulgence of social media that can happen. But taking pictures like, the Armadillo Christmas Bazaar has an Instagram account. Four Kitchens has an Instagram. And I think that a picture is a great way to engage an audience. It's a good glimpse into the personality of a company or of a brand as a person. So I love it. I call Instagram, my Twitter. It's my favorite Twitter because I'd rather look at a bunch of pictures than read some witty comment.
Is your Instagram account one that we can share with our listeners?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, so I'll put it in the show notes. They might get some great ideas for how to create better photography using...
I also, there's a website called Photo Jojo, and they have a great newsletter on how to do photography with your phone. And every week they send out tips on different sort of hacks or stuff that you can do to edit your photos, and it's really fun.
That's a great tip. One of the things that people ask me about frequently is, for example, I create these little pictures that we use on our Facebook account or on my own blog, which is about food and travel. I create banners and other things like that. I use an app called PicMonkey, which is not a cell phone app. It's on the computer. It's a website, but it's also an extension that you can add to your Chrome browser if you're a Chrome user. And it really allows you to do so many things with a picture in terms of editing it, making it look more beautiful, cropping, and creating all sorts of additional designs or adding captions to it and things like that. Are those some of the things that you're doing with your photography, or are you just using tools that create more artistic appearances?
I would say that most of the tools that I use just create more artistic appearances, but that PicMonkey sounds great. And as soon as you said Chrome extension, my ears perked up because I love Chrome extensions, and I don't know why anybody would not be using Chrome.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I think Chrome, for a lot of people, is maybe not the most familiar browser. If they're Mac users, obviously that comes with Safari. And if they're PC users, they may still be likely to use Internet Explorer or some other ones. But let's talk a little bit about Chrome, because I'll admit it's my favorite browser.
I go back and forth, for a while, I should say I went back and forth between using Chrome and using Firefox because even though I'm a Mac user, Firefox was my preferred downloadable browser. And really the thing that I love about Chrome is the extensions and that it so seamlessly works with all of the Google products. There's a button in Chrome that you can automatically go to the Google apps, which includes Gmail and Google Drive. And the extensions make it so user-friendly because you can make it whatever you want. I know my favorite Chrome extension is the Checker Plus for Gmail.
What is that?
It notifies me when I receive an email, and then it also allows me to mark it as read or delete it without even going into my email in the browser. So it's just super quick and easy. I can see what it is, and if it's junk mail, I can immediately send it to the trash. And if it's something that I don't necessarily need to read all of because it might just be one sentence email, I can just mark it read. And it's just lovely.
And a lot of our favorite tools out there are also available as Chrome extensions. For example, Pinterest. has an extension. Evernote has their web clipper
Yep.
extension. So some of the things that we're using already in our everyday processes, whether we're using it on our cell phones or in the desktop version, there's an extension in Chrome that can make it go just a little bit faster.
Exactly. And I know for me and for everybody who lives in the times now, going just a little bit faster is nice. When you don't have to get hung up on, oh, let me type in, this, and it's just a button right there and it brings you seamlessly to it. It's a good feeling.
You mentioned that, love to discover new apps and things like that. Would you call yourself a gadget girl or an early adopter of new technology when it comes out?
Yes, most definitely. Right now, I'm greatly resisting the urge to upgrade my phone because the new iPhones came out and I have a 5 and I really want the 5S now, but I know that I don't need it and I can wait until the 6. So I love having the newest, latest thing, and I love discovering new hacks for making those things run better and more seamless, and that you can customize them. I love being able to customize my technology to work for what I need it to do and what works for my life.
That is, I think, one of the best things about so many of the resources that we have available to us now is that we can customize them and make them do the things that we want. So let's talk a little bit about the artistic side of your work and your life in terms of the work that you do at the Renaissance fairs and the work that you've been doing with the Christmas Bazaar. How do those sorts of pursuits balance out some of this more technical stuff that you do in your 9 to 5?
Well, at the Renaissance Festival, I run a face painting business, so it's the complete opposite of technology. I am interacting with people, in person constantly. One person comes up and I paint them and we maybe have a chat, and then the next person. And I know that working at a tech company, oftentimes you don't see the customers, and especially, as an administrator, I'm in the office most of the time. It is a great way to keep a balance for me because I am a social person. And even though I love working in an office and I love the people that I work with, it is still fun to go out and just be, that different side of myself. And at the Christmas Bazaar, what's funny is that on our team, I'm the most technical person when it comes to technology. And I would say that at Four Kitchens, I'm the least technical person. So it's an interesting dichotomy of wearing different hats. And the Christmas Bazaar it's such a great place. It's like a family to me. The artists that have been doing that show for many, many years, I've had relationships with them ever since I was a kid. And the people that I work with at the company are like my second family here in Austin. We work very closely together, and it's a great way to keep in touch with my artistic side for sure.
That's great. I have to say it's one of the great institutions of Austin at the holiday time. So it's very cool that you have the opportunity to merge some of your various loves in doing that job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I know working there, I do a lot of layouts for our signs, our internal signage and documents. And then I also sort of manage the website and the content that gets put up on there. And so it sort of appeals to the things that I like to do as hobbies, although I might not be technical enough to do it at like a big tech company, but it keeps me engaged.
So before we started recording today's interview, we were talking about some resources that you have found that are good sites that people can use if they're looking to increase their skills or they're looking to learn something new. Could you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, there's a few that I really love. One of them is specifically geared towards more photography people who want to learn more about photography and having a photography business. It's called Creative Live, and their classes are free and streaming, and then you have to pay for them if you want to watch it on demand. But they also have other classes about lifestyle, keeping yourself centered and stress-free. And every single class that I've watched from them, I've really enjoyed. They have questions and answers, and the live streams are great because you can just put it on and do whatever else you're doing around the house or at work and kind of check in and out and catch bits and pieces that interest you. Another one that I recently discovered is called General Assembly. The classes that I signed up for on that, it's a monthly access pass, but you get 14 days free to try it. So I'm going to try to watch as many classes as I can in that 14 days to see if I like it. And now I've signed up for Design Hacks for Non-Designers, which should be an interesting one. And then the one I'm really excited about is Programming for Non-Programmers, Tech Speak, which I think will be a huge help around the Four Kitchens office because I'm not a programmer, but I would like to be able to listen to the conversations and understand what they're saying. And then the last one that I know a lot of people use is called Skillshare.
I love Skillshare.
I know. What's not to love? And they call it on-demand project-based classes, which is like my kind of jam. I love a project-based class. I like to be able to see the result of what I've learned at the end of it. And so right now I'm taking Learn InDesign and Learn Illustrator, which are both programs that I've dabbled with just for fun and sort of troubleshooting and learning different things. But I really want to be able to take it to the next level where I feel more confident with those programs. I'm really excited about that class. I know that as I was applying to Four Kitchens, I was putting together a resume for one of the first times in a long time because I had been self-employed and worked at the Armadillo for over 7 years now. And a couple of the resumes that I came across as examples of, what to make yours look like were all really beautiful and made in InDesign. And I was like, well, I don't have time to learn how to use InDesign and make my resume really beautiful, but one day I'm going to learn how to use that program. And I love design. I love the seamlessness of, like you said, like images and text and typography and how you can make it look so stunning,
So I think one of our tasks for a future podcast is to talk a little bit about InDesign and then maybe some of the less expensive options that are out there for making something that looks almost as great as an InDesign product, but that is a little more accessible to folks who don't necessarily need to purchase the Adobe Creative Suite that InDesign is part of.
I think that would be a great topic.
Yeah. Just even the way that we present our resumes in this day and age has completely changed. And that's also something you can do really nicely with your WordPress site.
Exactly.
Put together your own professional site, especially when you're job hunting.
Yeah, I listed my WordPress site on my resume, and really it was just sort of a splash page of like, these are the things that I like, and this is my personality, and this is my story. Not necessarily, I didn't have an in-depth blog, but it was just some of my favorite pictures and some of the things that I've made, and then a little blurb about who I am,
It's great. It can make such a difference. It gives you an opportunity to show a little bit of your personality and not just the job description, so to speak.
Which is so important, I think, in the industry today, because there's so many people who are perfectly qualified. But when it comes down to it, personality makes a big difference, obviously.
Definitely. So as we're coming to the end here, do you have any recommendations for women who are nervous about adopting something new or trying some new piece of technology?
I would say that if you're trying a new piece of technology, use a search engine and look for a thread, on the topic that you want, or a post about it, because somewhere out there, somebody knows the answer. And that's the beauty of the internet, is that you have the whole world at your fingertips. And even though you might not be a specialist in one kind of program or app, there's somebody that is. And I know that anytime that I feel like daunted by something, I pull out my Google search and scroll a few different articles and then find one that I can speak to. And that really helps me in my everyday life when I'm learning new things.
It's great advice. It echoes what so many of the other smart women that we've had on our podcast have suggested. So you're in great company there. So thanks again, Elia, for joining me today. It's been really great having you on Women Connected.
Thank you, Lisa.
The Women Connected podcast was brought to you by TBW and the TBPW Foundation, underwriter of many of our training and leadership development programs. For more information about TBW membership and our upcoming programs, please visit our website at tbwconnect.com. We hope you'll join us next time on Women Connected.